are in some case looking for a higher status man all the time. There is some function. And
even in marriage.
Hold on. Can I say something? Because before we get too far. So just to make it clear, you guys believe in free will, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. A lot of people don't. And a lot of people that talk about hypergamy in women think that it is an unconscious behavior. It's not like women are going and saying, we need this. Yeah, you see it on shows. I need a guy that makes $500K, but they're not consciously choosing men. If you actually look at the people that they're dating, it has nothing to do with that. So a lot of, and I know that's a hard concept for people.
Well, no, it's not hard. But would you also say that pair bonding is unconscious?
I do not agree. Yes, but I do not agree.
So how is it you can have somebody pair bond to somebody and be unified, but also on the other end?
I would love to tell you, but we're moving the goalposts.
No,
I wasn't moving the goalposts.
I'll tell you why.
I'm down to go 12 hours, and I love this question.
Yeah,
so pair bonding. So pair bonding in mammals.
It doesn't happen.
Because I first heard that term on the pod here.
Yes.
So we would call it soul tie.
It's my biggest pet peeve.
So hypergamy.
You don't like that?
Yeah.
No, because it's fucking bogus, dude.
Okay, so hypergamy.
Not you.
No.
The concept.
Look. I'm learning all these terms, so it's funny getting like denotative and annotative.
So by the way, for those of you who don't know, denotative would be the dictionary definition. Connotative would be the connotation, meaning like how you use the word. And like when people say, "Man, I was literally freezing to death," you were not literally freezing to death. That is the connotative version of the word. Literally.
It's so alarming that these are the conversations that get pushed out.
Let's have the conversation. So let's use the science.
Yeah.
You had a great question about. You had a great question about pair bonding, right? Yeah. So there's 5,000 mammals on the planet, and about 3% of those mammals actually pair bond, meaning they have some short-term mating strategy. Most of them, the vast majority of mammals have nothing pair bonding, like bonobos just have sex with whatever's in front of them.
They're wild.
Yeah, they're just wild.
Wild.
So now what happens with Homo sapiens, the way it is, and this is, I had Dr. David Buss on my podcast, and he agrees with this estimation. Homo sapien life for in general throughout our history is a lifetime of polygamy interspersed with small periods of monogamy. That's generally how it has worked through our life. Even if it's a case where I am monogamous with one person, he ends up dying of cancer, and then she ends up being monogamous with another person. You have different periods of monogamy. For the majority of human existence, it has not been one man and one woman together for 75 years. That is something that happened probably, after the agricultural revolution. Definitely you saw it more during times like the Dust Bowl or the Great Depression, where marriage was actually a function of life-saving. Like you I'm sure you guys have met families that have 14 kids or something like that. Like childbirth, death and childbirth, infant mortality, those kind of things caused families to stay together. I was reading one study that was talking about during the Great Depression, people were miserable in their marriages, but did not get divorced because it was a function of life and death. The problem is now that function of life and death isn't there. Like I know women that are trained with a 9mm Glock better than any dude that I've ever met in my life. They don't need you to go down with a shotgun anymore. And that's what's changed the whole thing. I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm saying that is what sort of changed the dynamic in society right now, is that women and men don't specifically need each other to have 15 children so that they can have farm hands, so that later on in life somebody can take over the farm and make sure the horses are fed. That we don't live in that type of lifestyle anymore. So that's one of the reasons why that happened. But as far as pair bonding is concerned, generally there's no species, or there's no proof that from an evolutionary standpoint we're supposed to be with one person forever, right? That's the issue.
I was just addressing the aspect of it being something that is out of your own control.
Well, almost none.
Just like, I'm saying, like
almost
attraction,
all of it's subconscious.
You know what I'm saying? It's like just happens naturally. It's not actual choice, etc.
I think a lot of times
very little of it is choice.
For sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we don't really understand what draws us to people, because it's for women. I can speak for women, but it's like you don't know what sexually attracts you as much as what you're actually attracted to for long term. So this is probably where we'll disagree, right?
What do you mean?
Because there's the attraction, then there's arousal, then there's long term. And long term, I think women confuse. You talk about this a lot.
Yeah.
Long term, they confuse dad bods, for instance. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. So I mean, this is a completely different subject, but the idea that what women find
I think it
what
goes
women
with it.
find comfortable and what women are attracted to are two different things.
Yeah.
You ever Brad the bartender? I fucking hate Brad the bartender. He texts me in the middle of the night. He just wants sex. I can't stand Brad the bartender.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you do with Brad the bartender last week? I had sex with him. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where women are legitimately do not like human men that they're having sex with, and at the same time they'll meet a guy, Alex the accountant, who's sweet, buys them flowers, does everything
All
the
the
right
good
way,
stuff.
wants to court them, and she's like, "This guy is the greatest guy. He's awesome. I hope you find a wife. You're fucking incredible."
Yeah.
And then she goes back and has sex with Brad, the bartender. That is the idea of cads versus chads or hypergamy. And is it the case with every woman? The reason why it's not the case with every woman though is a function of stimulus. There's a reason I don't make $40 million a year playing in the NBA. I don't have the opportunity to. I'm not a good enough basketball player. And there's a reason why some women do not have the opportunity to be playmates or to be on the red carpet at the Maxim party or to go to the Met Gala, because in those cases they would have the opportunity to keep monkey branching up. Some women just do not have that ability from the trailer park that they would, not specifically trailer park, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But even with that, with because I know in the red pill conversation, it's, you know, at the end of the day, men, whatever they can get, you know, essentially.
Sure.
But women, it's whoever they want to at that moment,
Yes.
right? But if that's the case,
But
that
that changes over the course of their life, by the way, right?
For sure.
And by the way, having sex and then getting someone to settle down are
It's
two completely different
totally
things.
Yeah, I get that, but even on the having sex aspect of it, like most women aren't out here having that much sex,
Right.
Right.
And
We
so-
agree
and
with
so
you.
why are we defining
Such a great point.
an entire
Yeah.
nature
So
to the minority?
Right. So hypergamy doesn't
That's a good
mean
question.
they're all having sex.
Yeah.
It has to do with what's in your, like take from the Bible. Jesus, I have been tempted. Sin inside your heart.
Yeah.
Like
For sure.
they notice other people. Hypergamy still does cause them to notice other people. Whether or not they will act on that has to do with external stimulus. I personally believe, this is just my belief, my hypothesis, that almost all of us are born with similar firmware. And the reason why is because there were points during our existence. There were only 50 million people. When the Bible was written, there was only 50 million people on the entire planet. Before that, there were different periods during Homo sapien evolution where there were 60,000 people on the entire planet. Every single thing we did had to aid in survival. Everything. So because of that, we tended to have, like, we can eat sugar. We can choose between vanilla and chocolate. We don't choose between vanilla and poop, right? There's this narrow range of things that we enjoy, and those things all come from survival. So what I do believe is that most people are born very similar as far as their evolutionary psychology is concerned. But because I'm not 6'8" and with a 42-inch vertical, I didn't get, like, I'm just thinking, like, consider LeBron's experience growing up as a teenager, or an extremely beautiful woman who had everyone say yes to them. My life wasn't like that. It was very hard, right? I had to work for everything. I had to get a scholarship. I had to, try to get money for school. I had to pay for my own college. I joined the military just to get some experience and some job experience. Like, I grinded. I had to. I was a man. I was grinding. And so my experience was very different. And so the external stimulus changes our behavior. If the external stimulus for you is you're constantly around people who are having sex with a whole bunch of other people, totally using profanity all the time, that will be your reality. And that's probably what you'll adopt to. And if it isn't, then it won't be. And that's, so that's essentially what's going on.
Yeah, nature versus nurture.
I think social media is what's playing a role. But
Sure, of course.
Ruslan, what did you want to say?
So are you guys familiar with the doctrine of original sin? You guys ever heard of
course,
original
yeah.
sin? Okay. So I think the issue for me and what I'm hearing from you.
Can we be specific just for the audience? You're talking
Sure.
about Eve biting from the tree
yes,
the tree of
Eve,
knowledge. Okay.
Yes, and Adam and Eve sinned, and then right. This is a
Of course.
doctrine in Christianity.
For sure.
Right. What I've found in reading some of the literature
Mhm.
and what I'm hearing from you are different. You're
Yeah.
giving a bunch of caveats and a bunch of nuance.
Yes.
And you sound much more like David Buss
Yeah.
than you do like Rollo Tomasi.
Yeah.
The issue that I'm seeing is when you look at the dual mating strategy, which has been debunked by David Buss
Yeah.
and by science, and the alpha lays, beta pays. Let me finish
Yeah,
my thought.
mhm.
It sounds like the red pill has created their own original sin, their doctrine that women are just this way. And this is it. She's gonna screw the
how they
pool
are.
boy.
So
She's gonna screw
right,
the
so
pool
here's
boy
the-
and marry the beta. It's just in her nature. Nonsense. That is nonsense.
Okay, so-
yeah, we
so
know
let me
that.
finish my
We
thought.
know-
That
go
is
ahead.
nonsense.
Yeah.
And so I encourage you, go back, read Rollo's book.
Yeah.
Read the nonsense in there. There's no citations. There's no scientific studies. In the very first one, The Rational Male, what not you, but a lot of people claim
It's
is
facts.
the red pill Bible.
Okay, so
if you disagree with that,
yeah.
then bro, we're on the same team.
Right.
I don't have an issue with a lot of what
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yeah.
It's a lot of David Buss. When this stuff is presented to Rollo, when we'll go through how we even came to the dual mating strategies, it was a t-shirt smelling contest, and women that were fertile wanted the alpha guys, and the women
That's
not
a
fertile.
true. That's a
But
true.
that-
when
study.
it was like there was like
that's a-
16 people in that study.
No,
Well,
no, they
there been
repeated
that study's
it.
been replicated. There
Yeah,
are
many
other,
times,
there are
many
other studies. In
times.
fact, there's studies that show that when women smell their own relatives,
Uh-huh.
they find
They
those
get
smells to be
Yeah,
repulsive.
that wasn't the study I was talking
No,
about.
it
Okay, so all I'm saying is,
It is.
it sounds
You said
like
repulsed?
you repulse.
Repulse
but
when
they
it's
smell their
good
own
to know.
relatives.
I'm
Incest.
not talking about that. What I'm saying is there seems to be this, and they'll say hypergamy is not a straitjacket, but it seems to be when we're talking about women's nature, that there's been this new version of original sin created for women, that I think when we're dealing with broken men who are struggling, who are more likely to end their own life, who a lot of them are overweight, who a lot of them don't get any interaction with women, it creates, in my opinion, a very flawed, distorted view of most women. Most women, according to the CDC, have less than 4 bodies on them.
Well, the average is 4. Correct.
Yes. 95% of women have less than 15 partners. 95%.
We know that.
I think
so
that,
most
those
women
numbers have changed,
aren't riding the cock carousel.
Right.
Most women aren't
I
out
agree
here
with
thotting
you.
out.
Okay.
It's a very specific type of woman. And what we're seeing is selection bias exhibited on a lot of these shows. And then it's tainting, hurting men's perception of actually pair bonding with a woman. And we know how beneficial marriage is. 90% of millionaires are married.
So if you guys want to learn about the categories of millionaires of the demographics, there's a great book called the Millionaire Next Door.
I think absolutely. I think you should write a book. Have you written a book yet?
Huh?
Have you written a book?
I
want you to write a new book for the Red Pill. Please platform this
Top
guy.
tool.
Please, I like this guy.
No, I love him too. He's not Red Pill.
He's not. You're not Red Pill, bro. You're not Red Pill.
The most common